video is about pattern interrupts for negative thinking or overthinking. So a pattern interrupt is just another term for interrupting negative patterns of thinking so that you can turn them around or change them. Now, this has come up for lots of clients that I work with, and this is something I've been making videos about for quite a while. I've never called it pattern interrupt, so you can find videos on this channel about negative thinking, cognitive distortions, going from emotionally reacting to situations, responding instead of reacting. There's quite a number of videos, so if you just search, you'll see similar themes to this, because this is a big thing that comes up. So negative thinking and overthinking is an issue that can impact negatively on your life, because you can't really stop negative thoughts when they pop up. You can't really stop any thoughts when they occur. So the trick or the thing is not to say to yourself you want to stop the thoughts in the first place, because it's almost impossible to do that. You can train yourself, which is the other video that I've done about rewiring your mind, retraining your mind, regaining power over your mind. That's, I think, that either the last live stream that I did, or it could be the one before that. But you can't really stop the thoughts, because that's the whole point. They're random thoughts. It's similar to intrusive thoughts. They're just popping up into your head, and then before you know it, you're kind of, struggling. So hi, Halos, thanks for joining. So I'm just going to give you 4 strategies. So this isn't going to be a long live stream, but I thought it was worth doing because it's come up so much this week, and also just over the years for many clients. And so I thought it might be useful in doing this. So the first thing, when these thoughts are coming up for you, or if you're overthinking and you're just in this state of spiraling. So for many people, the spiraling, the secret is, a thought will pop into your head, high payout, and then you will attach it to another thought and then another one. And usually they're all negative thoughts. So think about it, then you can just end up having a day or a few hours where you're just spiraling into negative thought, one after the other. So the pattern interrupt means that you are disrupting these thoughts before it gets to, hi Ricardo, thank you, before it gets to the point where you are just, oh, thank you. I'll have to get the comments after, because otherwise I'll, So you get to a point where you are having these thoughts. So the pattern interrupts means that you are going to stop these thoughts before they do damage. You're going to stop these thoughts before they spiral, before they escalate. So step 1, as I've said, there's only 4 things, is self-talk. Self-talk is one of the biggest and most powerful ways that you can hijack, that you can eliminate some of these interrupt these negative thoughts. So the self-talk will be things like you saying, we're not doing this anymore. I've heard this thought before. I'm not buying into it. It can also mean you say to yourself, these thoughts are just coming into my head. They're not the truth. They're not real. They're not who I am. They're not what I want. I've had enough of this. However you do it, and I think the more you can say these self-talk out loud, don't say it quietly, don't say it gently, but take control of the self-talk. Say to these thoughts, we're not doing this. I'm not having this. I'm not allowing this thought to come into my head. I'm sick of this thought. Hi Sayara. So that's the first step, is to use self-talk. And you don't even have to just use it for negative thoughts. I would say to people to just incorporate self-talk into your daily routine anyway. I use self-talk a lot. So it could be anything from when I'm sitting in a car and it's hot, obviously at the moment, with the weather. Hot, thanks Alpha. People just driving erratically. When you're feeling hot, when you're feeling tired and bothered, you can just do self-talk. You can say to yourself, you're not going to get anywhere faster if you have all these negative thoughts. There's no point in being irrational in the traffic and not allowing anyone to go through. Enjoy the weather, put your sunglasses on, relax, take your time. Whatever it is, self-talk can usually just be a soothing form of talking to yourself in a gentle way, and it's especially good for negative self-talk. So that is the first strategy, or the first tip that I can give you. The second one is something called shock therapy. I didn't make this up. This came from someone I was watching one of their videos. They're not a counsellor or a psychologist, they're actually a relationship expert. And they were talking about this idea of shock therapy. But in this case, you're using it to disrupt the pattern of negative thinking. So he says what you should do is you should splash cold water on your face, or you should put an ice cube on your neck. Now, the reason that you're going to do that is because it's going to take you, it's going to kind of shock you out of like these thoughts. Now, I've never done this before, and it's not something I've recommended to clients, but I was listening to it and it kind of makes sense, because he said when you're going down a spiral and you're just thinking negatively, so maybe it's you're thinking, oh, this thing that happened before at work 5 days ago, everyone's going to think I'm stupid, or I can't work there anymore, I'll need to find another job, or how comes every time I go into work everyone's looking at me in a certain way, or my boss thinks I'm really rubbish because, you know, I'm not reaching the targets. Whatever it is, when you're having those thoughts, it says snapping yourself out of it in a way is just do something which like brings your heart rate down but also distracts you. So putting the ice cube on your neck straight away will take your attention away from the thoughts. That's what it's supposed to do. Or splashing cold water on your face will kind of help with that as well. So that's the second one, it's the shock therapy. And if you don't want to do something as extreme as that, so you don't want to splash the cold water or you don't want to put the ice on your neck, you can maybe another distractive way, which is not the same as shock therapy, could be to just get out of that house and just to go for a walk. It could be to just go and make a cup of tea. It could be all you're trying to do really is to distract yourself from these negative thoughts which don't seem to be going anywhere. You know, you need to get control of them. So hi James. So strategy number 3, as I've said, these are not all anything that is like majorly different from what you've probably heard before, but it's just putting these things into place. And the third one is reframing. So I've made so many videos about reframing on this channel. I've made videos about your banishing your self-esteem thief, which is a book, and I've done a book review about that. Banishing your inner critic, I've actually talked about that a lot. I think I've probably made 6 to 7 videos. So if you search for those on this page, which you would just put in something like banish your inner critic, or you would put positive self-talk, things will come up. So the first way that you reframe is you put a name to it. So there's this phrase which is called name it to tame it. So if you have a negative person in your mind all the time, and normally it's yourself, but you can obviously, it can be external as well, put a name to it, call it Petty Betty, you know, pessimistic Pete, you know, whatever you want to call it, put a name to it so that you know it's a negative person or a negative voice that's in your head. So that's the first thing. Once you've then named it, you work towards banishing it. Your key goal is to banish this inner critic. So that would mean whenever the inner critic comes up with something that is negative, so they'll say, you're not going to ever meet anyone, you've already had loads of failed relationships, you've been divorced so many times, you know, who's going to be interested in you, you're useless, you're worthless, you don't have anything to offer. Just say, get out of here, Petty Betty, you know what I mean? I don't want to hear you today. So you've already named it. The second thing is you reframe that. You say, well, okay, yes, I've had some negative relationships that haven't worked out. That's part of life. Not all relationships end up well, but for me, I know what I have to offer. I know who I am, and you can name those things. You can say, I have this to offer, I have this to offer. I am confident in myself that I will be in a decent relationship. And the same as if it's, you can use it for anything really. Your main thing is you recognize that it's an inner critic. An inner critic is a critical voice that is with you all the time. I'm based in the UK, I'm James. So an inner critic is a voice that is with you all the time. So even when you're having a good experience, even if things are going really well, the inner critic doesn't disappear. That's why you need to give it a name to tame it. You have to say, pessimistic Pete, I know that you're just hanging around saying all these negative things, but I'm not interested today because I've just won an award. I've just passed my exam. I've just had a really good day. So pessimistic Pete, I'm not interested in you today. So if you give it a name, it means that instead of you owning it, and instead of you believing it, and instead of you having it as a part of you, you're separating yourself from it, because you're saying, this is just this pessimistic voice that keeps popping up when I don't need it to. So it's really useful, it's really healthy, and it fits in with the self-talk as well when you're saying, I'm not doing this today. So if you do all these 3 things so far, you say, we're not doing this today. I'm not having this. That's the saying the self-talk out loud. The shock therapy, splashing water on your face, an ice cube, or if you don't want to go down that route, just distraction, going for a walk, making a cup of tea. And the third one, reframing, like your inner critic, by saying, petty Betty, pessimistic Pete, get out of here, I'm not interested in you. When they're saying things, it's having a counter argument, which is more positive. And the final one is called shake it out. So again, this came from someone called, I think his name was Bern Menendez or something, relationship coach. He said that there's lots of theories around this idea of getting up and just moving around, because movement can then kind of generate something within your body and also within your mind, which takes you away from these negative thoughts. Because when you are really spiraling, and I've worked with clients where literally they're spiraling, usually sometimes in the session, you can see with their body language, you can see with their movement, you can see that they are just so tense, there's so much anxiety there. At that time, you've got too much the energy. It's like momentum. The momentum is going too much. These thoughts are just they're overwhelming. There's probably 100 million thoughts racing around their head while they're sat in front of me. So the thing that you have to then do, you might have to say to someone to get up, and shake. So it's shake it off. You've seen probably a video that I put up recently about meditation. Meditation will work sometimes, but if you're too overstimulated, sitting there quietly and doing meditation or mindfulness is probably not going to work. So what you then have to do, how is my back doing? What? I haven't got a bad back. So when you're doing, so if in some cases you would, you can use meditation. So meditation is to like calm you down. It is to like, if you've got too many thoughts, if they're overwhelming. But in some cases, you're not going to be in the space for meditation because you're too overstimulated, as I've said. So moving around, shaking your limbs, apparently, shaking your legs, shaking your arms, or even just dancing a little bit. So all of that is supposed to generate like a different energy into your mind, so that these negative thoughts can sort of be reduced and hopefully eliminated. So I think it's just practice. It's putting these things in place, these 4 things, the self-talk, the shock therapy, the reframing and banishing naming your inner critic to tame it, and then reframing it, and also shaking it out, moving around, shaking your limbs. If you try all of those things, I would say that, I'm not going to say that would mean the negative thought is just going to disappear, or it's not going to pop back up tomorrow or a few hours later, but it's worth a try. So the whole point really is you're just trying to interrupt the same thing that has been, I'm okay, Ezra, thanks for asking. The whole thing is to just interrupt what's on the wall. On the wall is just a picture. It's just a nice picture on the back of the wall. Oh my gosh. So it's just about disruption. That's all. No, whatever's on the wall hasn't moved because it is a picture and it's a still picture, so it's impossible that it moved. So no, as I've said, and I'm about to like tie up anyway, is just the pattern interrupt. Is all it is when you've just had enough of these negative thoughts that are constantly there. It's taking action, it's putting these things in place, and it's seeing what happens from there. And then you would just review it. You might say, none of these stuff that I've tried works. So then you would sit down again and you'd put together another plan. One of the things that I'm good at when I'm working with my clients is, instead of just saying to them, try this, try going for a walk, try journaling, try the usual things that we would say as counsellors, those things might not work for someone. So then we would say, okay, well, what are 3 things that you want to put in place? What are 3 things that you think will help? And then they'll try that, and then they'll come back to therapy next week, and they'll say, that didn't work, or this didn't work. And then, greatest ever, you've just said, I interrupted you. Yeah, but we're not talking about just interruptions. We're talking about pattern interrupts, which are to do with when someone's having negative thoughts, how they can interrupt them so that they can then reduce those negative thoughts. So yeah, okay, BJ. So that's yeah, so that's the end of the live stream really. I didn't want to go too long today with this because it's just a simple live stream. I'm going to be looking at other things as we go along. So every Monday, I'm going to just continue to look at topics. If anyone has like a topic that they want me to explore, then let me know. Then I will definitely make a video about it. But if not, then I'll just come up with things that are either affecting the clients that I work with or things that I think will be really interesting, really. So thanks. Okay, greatest ever. Hi, Kerben. Thank you as well for joining. And everyone that joined, Akash, everyone else, BJ, thanks for how do I send the topic? Just send me a message. So on this, on my on this page, all you would need to do is probably just send a message, or you can go to my Facebook page, Marianne Hanson Counselling Service. So it's the exact same name as this page on YouTube. So you can just James. So if you want, you can just send me like a message on Facebook or on here. Put it in the comments if you want, and I'll pick that up. And I always make videos if people give me a recommendation. So, have I tried the new drink, Dickens cider? I don't really drink cider. I've never drank cider in my life, but thank you for the recommendation, the Dan. So, I'm going to say bye now, everyone. Thanks to everyone that joined. Thank you for taking time to join. And I'm glad you found the topic useful. So, yeah, brilliant. I'll speak to you all next week. And don't forget, leave a comment and leave any recommendations. Thanks for watching. Bye.